Hi, Stitchers. Welcome to Tatreez Talk, where we share conversations about Palestinian embroidery. Join me, Lena, and my co-host Amani as we chat with talented embroiderers and artists, sharing their stories, inspirations, and the cultural significance behind their work. Fellow listeners, grab your Tatreez project, thread your needle, press play, and let the stories unfold, one stitch at a time. Hi everyone, I'm so excited to introduce Sara Jayousi from Deerah. This is a incredible company that has come about in the last few years, and I'll let her talk a little bit more about that as we have the conversation. But just for the audience to know, this is a small Tatreez design house that sheds light on the art of Palestinian embroidery and challenging deep-seated prejudices against Palestinian culture. Welcome to Tatreez Talk, Sara.
Thank you. Yeah, my name is Sara Jayousi. I'm a Palestinian designer and founder of Deerah. I founded Deerah with my husband in 2020 in the midst of COVID. It was a COVID project. And it was, honestly, it was nothing that I expected for it to be like what it is today, to be honest. But I'm so proud of everything that has happened with Deerah, the community that we've built, people that we've met in the community like you guys. Yeah, so basically that is me. I'm based in Canada, and but everything about Deerah, all the production and everything is done in Jordan, and yeah, that's basically us in a nutshell.
Amazing. And I am a personal fan. I own a few pieces. I was just saying before we jumped on how I recently got one of the twab that you have, the pink and blue one. I don't know what it's, I forget what it's called. Is it the Zahra? Is that
Zahra,
the
yeah.
Zahra tob? I love it. Photo shoot coming soon.
Oh, yes, please.
Oh, for sure. Don't you worry. But Sada, we always like to start by asking our guests about their personal Tatreez journey. So we'd love to understand from you, like, what brought you to Tatreez?
So, like I said, well, I'm Palestinian, obviously, so Tatreez is a part of like our culture and it is a part of our heritage. So it is always kind of there in the background, but it wasn't really the center of like my, I want to say, focus I until I started Deerah. So initially, I'm a nutritionist. I studied nutrition in university and I practiced for 4 years. But after that, when I moved, and then me and my husband were supposed to move from Saudi Arabia to Canada, and then we got stuck in Jordan. And so we were like, okay, what are we gonna do now? You know, we saw this opportunity where we felt like people really did used to come to Jordan, and they used to come to Palestine or the region and get their stuff yearly or every 2 years. And part of the main things that they would come and buy, which was one of their essentials, was Tatreez. And that kind of used to kind of happen in the background. I didn't really used to pay much attention to it. But then my husband, kind of, told me that, hey, no one's traveling anymore. Why don't we try and set up a website for people that if they want to buy their tatreez that they usually come to Jordan for or to Palestine, that we can facilitate for them. Everything's going online now. Let's try and do that. So in the beginning, it was basically, we didn't have that much capital. We weren't working. And so we decided to invest in a few machine embroidered pieces and just try our luck and see what happens. Literally did the photo shoot on Farah, who is my husband's sister, on our rooftop.
I love it.
And I borrowed my cousin's professional camera, and we literally just put draped like a white sheet behind her, and that was it. We DIY'd everything. And after that, after it kind of started picking up, I was like, okay, I really want to invest in a few hand embroidered pieces. That's really what I wanted to do. And so when I had enough money to invest in a few hand embroidered pieces, I decided that there was always like a middle person between me and the embroiderers. I still didn't know like who was making the pieces themselves. And I decided that I want to meet the embroiderers. Like I want to go and see the people actually making the pieces. And then that's when things really took like a 180-degree shift for me, was when I started meeting the embroiderers. They honestly taught me so much about so many things, not just tatreez, but like how it just opened my eyes. It wasn't my first time in the camps. Like been to a few camps in Jordan before, but never in this context where I was kind of seeing firsthand how much they are exploited financially, and just how beautiful and intricate the work that they're doing is, and still they're not being compensated at all, and just how little they will ask for because they're so worried that they might lose whatever jobs that they have. And I saw firsthand just how much people take advantage of that. But anyways, I'll jump into detail about that later. But that was when I learned. Like, I would sit down with them, and they would be doing embroidery, and they would tell me, like, you know, in Arabic, like, "Inti بتبيعي تطريز, but you don't know how to do تطريز تعالي," you know. And so they like, "You don't know how to do تطريز, we'll teach you." So they gave me,
I love the Arab shaming.
Yeah. They gave me like a thread needle, and they taught me how to do it. And so I learned the basics with them, and I saw how they would like troubleshoot things easily. Like, I'd be panicking, like we had like a piece or whatever, and they'd be like, "Just give it to me, I'll fix it." So I learned community, I learned the art, I learned the love behind it, I learned what it means for them to be a refugee, what it means to be in the camps, what it means to be stuck in the camps. There was so much beauty that I saw, but also so much stuff that was very, very hurtful. And so that was my intro to Tatreez, but there was so much for me to deal with, and I felt very responsible about all these things that I was learning as well, while being with them. And yeah, it's just like I said, it was a very sudden exposure to a lot of things, and I felt like, okay, I can this is something that I can actually invest in. Like, before, when we started, I didn't really feel very excited, to be honest, about Deerah in the beginning, like, because it was just machine embroidered stuff that I felt like I was just drop shipping, you know. But even when I started designing my own stuff, it didn't really bring much joy. I didn't really feel very invested. But when I went into those camps and we started designing and learning about the Tatreez and the history and the women and their conditions and everything, I felt like, okay, this is a really big deal. This is a big thing.
There was a deeper connection.
There's a deeper connection. There's a responsibility. There's a drive, and I feel like I can make a change.
Wow, I love that. I really love that. And I love something that you said about Tatreez and community as well. It sounds like you built community with these women. They taught you, they took you under their wings to teach you. And it sounds like
humble me so much.
Oh, I'm sure they do. Arab women will do that. So I'm assuming you still have community with these women, because they're still working with Deerah, correct?
Yeah, 100%. So the first camp that I was exposed to was the Baqa refugee camp. That's the first camp that I went to. It's the closest one to my home, and in Jordan. And so I went into who is currently our lead embroiderer's house. Her name's Ahmed, and Ahmed, basically, she took me under her wing, basically, and she's now my I'd say right hand in all of this. And yeah, she's a wonderful woman who recently lost her husband, but he was blind before that. And she was actually not always in the camps. She has a specific story where she was in Saudi Arabia and they were doing well, but her husband lost his eyesight and he wasn't able to work anymore. So when they went back to Jordan, they weren't able to work legally, and so they went to the camps and they stayed there. And it was a big shift for her from being, well off, and then having to go to the camps. And her house is super, super basic, like everyone else in the camps. It's not very well reinforced, and they don't have enough money to get by. And so it was interesting to see all these women. Like, we see a lot of Palestinians going through unimaginable circumstances, how strong and resilient they are, and she's no different. And so yeah, so she basically, she's been doing Tatreez for so long. She took me under her wing, and I'm forever grateful to her and everyone else that I learned from. And we've been partners ever since, me and her. And then I also went to the Gaza refugee camp in Jarash, which is another level of that's much worse than other refugee camps, because the Gaza refugee camp in Jarash is obviously for people from Gaza, and people from Gaza in Jordan are not documented. They're not allowed to have national numbers. and so, which is a part of collective punishment for people from Gaza. And so they're unable to at all leave the camps. They don't have any legal work. So I felt like, okay, I need to focus a little bit more here because these are women that can't leave. And so, yeah, so they're my lead embroiderer, Amani, who's also a single mother who cares for her family over there as well. And she's also taught me so much about, you know, resilience and Tatreez, and she absolutely loves doing Tatreez. It's she actually just enrolled in university as well, so I'm very proud of her for doing that. Yeah, so there's so many stories, so many things, so much in the community that you learn about through Tatreez. That's the thing I think all of us know, and I think we want to raise awareness about, is that Tatreez isn't just Tatreez. Like, there's so many stories behind it. Everything that is behind Tatreez is what, you know, what we're trying to tell, what we're trying to show to the world.
Lena, I know storytelling through Tatreez is like your personal passion.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I learned about it when I was doing some history research on Tatreez, and I'm like actually very curious because, you know, before the Nakba, the storytelling was done by the woman who was going to wear the thobe. And so now when you have kind of this intermediate person, how are you incorporating some of the stories that are being told with these women and in the collaboration that you do with them? Is that kind of coming out in the designs, in the process of doing the Tatreez? Like, are they splitting up the pieces and each woman is working on it together in community? I'm really curious about how that's kind of playing out.
So the process of how we customize is basically I speak to whoever, like the client or whoever wants to create the piece itself, and I like creating this, you know, one-on-one, very not formal, you know, space where this person, I can get like to know them and what they want to incorporate in their dresses. A lot of the time, some of them have a really, you know, good vision of what they want. Sometimes they need a little bit more guidance about, okay, do they need, you know, what aspects of their culture that they want to incorporate, if it's certain areas of Palestine, if it's symbolism, if it's certain motifs, if it's a lot of the time, which is something that I absolutely love, is like, this is my teta thobe, you know, and pictures of that, and that's so beautiful. I think it's so beautiful.
Yes.
And so just that, and then we design, and then I translate those designs to the women in the camp. So what they typically do is, I tell them like so and so is from Hon and she wants to incorporate this in her thobe and she's gonna wear this to her wedding. Like, I tell them the backstory. And they're always so, you know, after the, like, they do, so it depends on the time that we have. I prefer if, like, the one embroiderer can take the whole thobe, just because she's gonna make more profit off of it, as opposed to having more embroiderers do, like, just parts of it. But it really just depends on how much time I have with the client. Like, if I have sufficient time, I would rather just one person do it, because it's, for her, it's a project. She gets paid for it, and that's done, as opposed to splitting it to a couple women. And so in that case, so she's invested in it, you know, she's been working on it for months. So it's like, it's her project. So when she's done with it, and we send it to our tailor, and then that goes to our customer. A lot of the time they're texting me like, did she send you any pictures?
That is so sweet.
And I'm like, I'll ask, but it's like, it's private. You know? So now sometimes I like try to take a picture of it before it goes, and then I send it to the embroiderers, and they love seeing it like together. Like, they always like to see it like assembled. And if a lot of the time, like, a lot of my clients do send me a picture, and I'm like, can I send this to the embroiderers, because it's like, it means so much. They've been working on it for months and months and months. They want to see it, you know, on the arus or on the bride or whoever's gonna wear it. Like, it's like, it comes for full circle for them. So it's so nice to, like, and then a lot of the time, even like my customers would type out like a thank you to the embroiderers that I would like translate and send to them. They love that.
That is so beautiful.
That's amazing.
And this whole community, like, me being in the middle of all of that, is just so beautiful. Like, seeing people that that love and value Tatreez and our heritage, and appreciate the women that are creating it and that are willing to, that really want to compensate them, and the women that love doing this because they are being compensated for their time and for their efforts. And then that's why they're so invested. Like, if they weren't compensated and if they didn't feel happy and rewarded about the work that they're doing, they wouldn't care about like what it, like they would have negative feelings or negativity towards whoever it is that's buying this though. But we want the whole process, and I'm so happy that we've created this environment where the whole process is kind of like a very loving and beautiful community building kind of process. And that's really what I wanted to do, as opposed to just being like a fashion business. So that was a very long answer.
It was a great answer to the question.
I love it. I love it.
I feel like, it sounds like too, like the embroiderers, they put their heart and soul into the pieces, and they're telling their stories almost in a way, like combining it with the customers, the clients' stories. So, yeah, it's beautiful. I mean, Lena and I both stitched. Lena has stitched her own thobe. She knows how long that takes. We know how long it takes to stitch. So there's definitely a appreciation for all that work that gets put into it. And I think, having you guys are almost kind of the middle people of bringing the diaspora, home, really, through Tatreez, because oftentimes it is hard to find quality thwab in the diaspora that are from people who are being properly compensated. And I know we've talked a little bit about that, but that is a big issue. And I know you guys, that's very important to you to ensure that your embroiderers are being compensated properly and that there is value in the Tatreez work that you guys put out.
Yeah, I mean, number one is, well, to comment about something that you just mentioned, I actually thought about this, Lena, that I want to send people that, like, clients to you first, so you can teach them Tatreez and, like, the history before they come to me to buy the products. Because I'm like, listen, wallah, you're not going to know how much time these things take until you actually practice. So, like, precursor to buying a thobe needs to be going to Lena for like a full course. And then
and actually that's an actually really interesting like segue, because one of the questions that we wanted to ask you was about basically that perception by your clients. Like, do they have a sense of how long and how much work goes into hand stitched pieces? Because I know for me, like, the only reason my father started to value Tatreez more is because I had a month off between like jobs, and I was working on this project that was a pillow. It ended up being a pillow, but I was working on it like 8 to 10 hours a day, 7 days a week, because I had nothing else to do. And it took me a month, and so he was, at the end of the month, he's like, oh my God, we did not pay enough for this pillow, because I was imitating one that we had. And like, he had to witness me for a month before he could come to that realization. So I'm so curious with your clients, how do you manage that, I guess? And maybe it kind of comes as part of the price tag. Like, maybe that's kind of like, you kind of filter out the people who wouldn't be able to value it if they're not going to actually make the purchase. But I'm just curious how you have those types of conversations and just talk about that with them.
This is actually a really great topic that me and Ahmad, my husband, have a lot of the time, is that like, value and price point, as opposed to having it, like, it's a very thin line between having something that's valued enough and pricing it at that, but at the same time making it attainable and not causing like this rift where people just can't buy thobes because they're so expensive,
Exactly.
You still need to put it at its value, that it is a handmade thing that takes months. But at the same time, I do not want it to be like something that's ultra expensive that people can't buy still. So there's a very thin line between those things. And so for me, that's why I still have the machine embroidered items, because I still want people to be able to wear their heritage, to have thobes, to have embroidered clothing, but they don't have to break the bank if they don't necessarily at this moment have the funds for it. But still, I'm able to, through the prices that I put for my hand embroidered items, to pay everyone that's involved in the process fairly and to value them for what they actually are, which is heirlooms. Like, you're going to have this for life. It has your life story. And even
Yeah.
if it is just like a ready design, it's going to be something that you will recycle and wear all your life, and it has a really beautiful meaning to it. So with like clients, it really differs. It just depends on the person. Like some people actually practice tatreez, so they understand how much time it takes. Other people don't, and some people are actually really shocked at how much time and effort it takes. But it's a good learning process for them, as an intro into this aspect of their culture. And at the same time, like the women themselves, they're able, I always try my best to give them as much time as they can so that they're not stressed about it, but at the same time provide enough work for them so that they're able to sustain themselves throughout the months. It's a balance of like everything together. But like I said,
Yeah.
it's really important. Like that's the thing. Like there was like I was having this conversation with someone where people, I think in our community, when they see like designer bags, for example, or designer stuff, it's very easy for them to go like, yeah, that's $3,000 for a small bag, whatever. That's because it's like a whatever brand bag, and I want that, and I
Yeah.
want to look good, so I want to buy that. But
Yeah.
when you say the same price for something that's actually taking months to make, and there's so much that goes into it, there's like this question of like,
Yeah.
yani, why is it so expensive? And so regardless of the actual running costs of running a business, there's this really big part of tatreez that's just that was very devalued over time. And there are, I think, many aspects that played into that. One of them being obviously, and I think the number one is the colonization of Palestine, al-ihtilal, and just everyone. At the time, I think it was a very important tactic of systematic erasure to make us feel like savages, and everything that is incorporated in our own tatreez, or in our own, sorry, culture is, associated with being backwards, with being savage, not civilized, not taken for not taken seriously. All of those very demeaning, views that we've internalized as a community, unfortunately. And so a lot of the time I would ask people that would tell me
Yeah.
like it's expensive, like, oh, what do you think about so and so bag that's like $4,000? Do you think that that's worth it? Do you think that that's okay to pay that? If you think it's okay to pay that amount for a bag, but you don't think it's okay to pay that
Yes.
amount for a thobe, we have a problem. So that's my issue with, and I have to say
Yeah.
it's a very, very, very small number of people that actually think that I've come across. But I know that there's unfortunately this very big um, movement right now, in the past, that really caused a lot of damage to tatreez and to the embroiderers. And so when I first started out, my lead embroiderer, Ahmed, told me that all of the money that she's making from tatreez, and it wasn't just us, it still isn't just us, she works with other people. And so she was saying that she's putting into her daughter's education, because she didn't want her daughter to not have a degree like her, and she wanted her daughter to be an architect. So her daughter studied architecture. She graduated last year, and she was telling me, I'm not gonna let my daughter do tatreez. Like it was a thing. Like she did not want her daughter to do tatreez. So I asked her why, and she's like, yeah, because I want her to get like a good job, you know. And so that to me like struck a
Yeah.
chord. Like, why is tatreez not a good job? Why is tatreez
Yeah.
considered something that's less than? It's something that she does not want her daughter to go through because of all of the exploitation that she has been through. She wants better for her daughter. So I was like, okay, we can change this so that, what if actually it was so good to the point that people would actually want their daughters to not necessarily not study, university or whatever, but to actually incentivize them to the point that they actually
Yeah.
want their children to, or their daughters, or even their sons, their children to learn these ancient and very important crafts in our culture. And to my surprise, one of the shawls that we did a few months ago, she texted me. She's like, "My daughter did this shawl because she needed the money for something." And so I was like, "Okay, cool." So there's like there is like
Wow.
an incentive with money, that she wants to, she needs the money, and so she's trying to do tatreez. But that to me is good. Like because if you compensate them well, the people actually that have all this knowledge, then they will pass it on to the younger generations, and we're not going to lose it. And that's the thing, like money is a big part of that. And if they're not compensated well, if they don't have enough money, they're not going to feel, they're not going to want to pass that knowledge down. So if we lose Ahmed and all of her generation of embroiderers, like what are we left with? That's the thing. What are we left with? These are very skilled women that have been doing this since they were very, very young. And so it's such a shame that people don't think about when I'm bargaining for Tatreez. What I'm actually doing in the future is I'm letting these women and this art die out, because the younger generation doesn't want, pennies.
That's really powerful.
Typically how they're paid is per ball, per the ball of cotton that they use and the amount that they're going to use on the project. But like I said, it could take one person, a significant amount of time, and another person less time. So it just depends on there's a lot of factors as well that go into it, like the complexity of the design. Like for example, just a straightforward thobe is not like if you're doing, like for example, the connecting stitch, the manajil. This is a lot more difficult to do. If you're going to be doing something that has tahrire, or like the couching stitch, is it something that has like a round design? So round designs are much more difficult to do, like if it's a skirt or something. So there's a complexity to that design. So you can't chalk it up to just being like, oh, how many balls of thread did it take? Okay, whatever. No, there are things that are a lot more difficult to do with those supplies than it is to just do like a standard, shawl or a thobe even. Like there are even the cuts themselves. Am I going to have embroidery like running up all the way up? Are there things that they need to take care of, like to go around? It's a lot to think about, and they were never compensated before for like adding waste canvas and removing waste canvas. Anyone that does embroidery, removing waste canvas. Wait, Lena, you like removing waste canvas? I remember you
I
said
do not.
Ah, despise.
Waste canvas is my enemy.
Yep, despise.
Oh, you hate it? Okay. Who once told me that they love removing waste canvas? I forgot.
God bless them.
I know, right? So they were like, I'm ناخد على removing the waste canvas something like 1 or 2 JDs for a full thobe. I'm like, are you
What?
serious?
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
These are the crazy numbers that I've like. These are the crazy numbers that
That's
I
upsetting.
stumbled into.
That's wild.
It's
And so,
infuriating.
no, that's like
Yeah.
a full job. That's a full job
Yeah.
that needs to be compensated. That's not okay. And then you
Yeah.
have beating as well. Like, is there beating? And that's going to take time as well. So we had to like create this full process, this system of like, okay, this design, how much thread is it going to take? Okay, how much time did it take? Who worked on it? Like, was there beating? Was there manajil? Was there kaza? And so there's a lot that goes into it. And I think that the way that they were just compensated before, I think is so unfair. And home themselves, they are very afraid to lose these jobs. And the way that they were treated, unfortunately, for very long, made them convinced that they can't speak up for themselves. And so when I would come in for like with a job or something, and they feel like it was going to take more time than I initially like told the client or whatever, or something happened and then they needed to change something or whatever, their immediate phrase to me was in Arabic was "ما تزعلي منا," or "don't get upset." And like my initial reaction was like, wow, why do you feel like you need to say that?
Yeah.
And so because I think for very long they're very afraid of losing these jobs, and they're very afraid for asking for more. And so I think by working with not just me, there are now people that are aware of this and that are compensating them well, and them themselves are saying like, no, I usually get paid more for this. And so it's become kind of like a movement for them, in order for them to say like, okay, I know that my time actually, I need to be compensated for my time like this. And if you're not going to pay me this amount, I've been paid like this before, and that's how much I'm going to ask for. And it's actually been I think it's a difficult thing for them to even like to do. I know that it's a difficult thing for me. Like, I'm a people pleaser. I know
Yeah.
that it's hard to ask for more, especially when you can't work legally, for example,
Yeah.
when you have no other means of getting um, money, so you feel like, okay, I'm just gonna keep
You
my
feel
head down.
trapped.
Yeah, just keep
Yeah.
my head down and do whatever I need to do to feed my family, and people take advantage of that.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
That's so upsetting, but it's reassuring to hear that there are companies like Deerah that are trying to like right the wrongs, and that it actually seems to be spreading amongst the embroiderers there, and they're able to stand up for themselves. I know personally, I had no concept of how long the threes took until I started stitching.
Mm,
And that's why I love that what you said earlier, Sara, about people need to learn Tatreez first before
yeah,
they start, before they buy a thobe. I actually support that.
I think
I
that
mean,
that should be.
I see a collaboration in the works right now.
Yeah, let's do it.
I'm just saying, I'm
Stay
down.
tuned, everyone.
Stay
Something's
tuned.
coming in.
That's just gonna make the process so long. Like you'll get your
That's the thing.
though like a university degree, like in 4 years.
Are we gonna start at Tatreez University?
Oh, Amani?
Nice.
The marketing girly over here.
I love it. I love it. Oh my goodness. So funny.
So, Sada, I know you guys have a collection coming up. I'm sorry, you have two collections coming up, right? The Madini and the Fallahi collections.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that, about kind of like the inspiration behind the collections and the stories that are being told within the collection and the pieces?
Yeah, so we had the Madini collection that was supposed to launch in fall winter this year, but unfortunately, with the recent aggression on Gaza, we were not able to launch, but it just did not feel in any way like it was a priority at all. I mean, with everything going on, our full focus has been to use our platform in any way possible to just shed light on the unimaginable conditions that the people of Gaza are going through. And yeah, so we kind of just we basically just put the products on our website for whoever would be interested. But the Madani collection is like a precursor of like an idea. I actually did play around this idea of like the Madani and the Fallahi cultures in our 2021 spring summer collection, and I just love this this contrast in our culture. I really absolutely love it because I'm half Madani and half Fallahi. My mom is from Ramle, which is a Madani, like from the city. Are you
My
from Ramle?
So my mom's grandmother is from Ramle, the city, and then the rest of my mom's family is from the village from El Kbab. And so apparently my great grandmother was a little shaif halha because she was Madani. But I'm
Oh
like, girl,
yeah.
you wound up in the farm too.
See, that's the thing. Like, I'm half and half, so there's like this whole thing where they're like, oh, she's like the daughter of Al Madaniya, of the city woman. And so
I love Autumn.
I know. See, that's the thing. Like, I love the nuances, the really small, tiny details in our culture. I absolutely love, love, love. And so, yeah. So I'm half Madani. My mom's from Ramle, from the city, and my dad's from Tulkarem, and they're like full Fallahi. Like we have, olive groves and all that. And so that's, I'm you know, from both cultures. And so, yeah, so I think people that are non-Palestinian, especially people from the West, don't actually realize that there are so many like mini cultures inside our big Palestinian culture. Like they would even in the past, like people that would migrate from one city or one region of Palestine to the other would consider it ghurbe, like you were actually going to a foreign place, and they would be so sad that you're leaving, like within Palestine. you know? And so, yeah, so I love incorporating both those aspects of my personal heritage, but as well as like I love the contrast itself, and I love like the mini kind of pettiness between the two.
Right. I do too. It's all in good fun.
I love it so much. Like in Fallahin have like this, oh, you're like from the city, and then in Madaniyin are a little bit stuck up, you know, like, oh, I don't work in the fields, and you know, and so I love that. I also loved learning, which was very interesting to learn about the Tatreez aspect itself from Widat Qarwad, which I'm sure you guys know is a giant in the world of Tatreez, and I attended one of her online lectures in COVID, and she actually brought up a very interesting detail about Tatreez, which was the women that were in the cities historically in Palestine were the only women that actually had the time and the money to create very very heavy thobes with a lot of embroidery and stuff like that. So it was a very big symbol of status in the past. And so the women that wore a lot of Tatreez were considered like very wealthy, very well-off women. And then with time, it was interesting to see that became like only for Fallahi women, because the Fallahi women also wanted to look, good. They wanted to look like they were well off too. And so they would invest a lot of their money later on into thobes, but the Madani women had already moved on from thobes. They were on to like Western fashion. And so that's how when like we grew up, we started seeing only women that were from the villages wearing thobes. But the women that were from the city had moved on to Western fashion, and it was no longer a symbol of status. It was just a symbol of like folklore, or just something that village women would wear, and kind of lost its value. And I wanted to delve into that. I really wanted to understand, like, why did the Madani woman do this? Like, now I felt a little bit of, I'm not gonna lie, I felt a little bit of resentment. Like, guys, let go of something that was, that we've had to reclaim. But in their defense, as I started learning more, and there's not a lot of documentation about this, but as I started kind of trying to understand the history at the time, I think at the time, I don't think they actually fully understood the scope of what was going to go on. I don't think they really could have forecasted the systematic erasure that was going to happen. And I think that the full, indoctrination or the deep-seated racism that was starting to take form from Western colonization was just starting to take form in fashion as well. And they wanted to look sophisticated. They wanted to be taken seriously. They wanted to look like, like educated, and I'm sure you know what I mean when I say that they wanted to be taken seriously. Like, they wanted to look like Westerners and to feel like they were on that level of fashion, and they wanted to look fabulous, which is like, now I understand that obviously I'm not going out every day in a thobe. So I understand why they would want to like blend in as well. Like, I understand how they wanted to kind of blend in and to be taken seriously, and to go on and to modernize even their own fashions, and to create things that would be more innovative. And so I know now why that happened. And then as the Fallahi women kind of caught on to having more money and having more time, and then them doing Tatreez, unfortunately it was kind of devalued. And I don't know whether that was like intentional, or it was just a part of the times, or how that happened. But I love that. I love exploring that aspect of Tatreez. Like, how did we get here? How did we get to the point? And now I feel like there's like this shift back. There's like this push back. But I love highlighting that small, that's those small differences and nuances in our culture. So I love both cultures. I think they're so beautiful.
You don't identify as one or the other?
I don't know. I mean, I've always lived in cities, so I'm probably Madani, but I mean, my father's side of the family, unfortunately, would say that I am Madani, but my mom's side of the family kind of see me as a Jayusi, which is like, so I don't know which one I am.
Wait, so tell us more about how that comes out into the collection. Like, how do you make something more Madani or more Fallahi in your collection specifically this time?
Yeah, so I just wanted to make it like, I really did delve in kind of to learn more about the history, but then I came back and I was like, okay, what do I know about Fallahi and Madani culture? Like, what do I see? Like, how is it, like, I wanted to tie it back to personal, experiences and what I saw when I was in Palestine and from my both sides of my family. So Madani was kind of more I felt like very rebellious. Like the Madini women are very rebellious, and I love that about them. They're very outspoken. They're very they have a world of their own, and they're not going to let anyone tell them what they're going to do or what they're not going to do. And so I love that. And how do I translate that? And so I took more kind of masculine cuts as opposed to like very feminine cuts and designs. So I took like the tailored vests, for example, and I started seeing like even historical images of women in tailored suits, like Palestinian women in tailored suits, and even like the blazers and everything, and having them like decked out in tatreez, meaning that they had a lot of tatreez in there and embroideries, and just kind of merging those two things into like a very non-traditional look, but at the same time having a lot of traditional tatreez as well. But then I also did like the zaytuna dress, which had like the a very feminine kind of very beautiful cut as well, because I wanted to just explore both sides of them, where the women were like very beautiful and very feminine, but at the same time they were like going into a new stage, pushing new boundaries and going out into the workplace and studying and stuff like that. So how do I translate all that into like fashion pieces? I wanted to create just a small, very concise collection that kind of spoke to that, to them going out into the world and being very steadfast in wanting to do what they had in mind. And be educated and work and have their own money and all of that, and at the same time them being like that having those dreams like every other Palestinian woman. And I don't know, it was whatever I felt like. I when I looked at those images and what I would remember from like my mom as well, my mom is a business owner too, and she really taught me a lot about what it means to have that balance between being very rigid and between being very feminine as well. That's a very big topic in itself. But like I wanted that's what I saw in Madani women, very determined, absolutely, beautiful and feminine, but at the same time had this rigidness about them. And the Fallahi collection is still in the works, because I wanted to create like an homage to where I'm from, Tulkarem. And Tulkarem is a place in Palestine that didn't have that much embroidery, because like I said, historically they didn't have a lot of time, but they had this really distinct style, which was like the cotton dress, the white cotton dress that had very minimal embroidery on the inside, but then very elaborate and beautiful like textiles on top that they would layer. So it kind of looked like it was all over the place, but when you look at it, there's like a very, and I remember seeing people from my family like wear that, and I think that whoa, that's a really interesting way to wear embroidery. But it turns out that was like, there was even different places in Tulkarem and how they would layer and style it that I didn't know about. And
That's
so
really
it was
cool.
and so it's just been a journey of me trying to learn a little bit more about that, and to create some pieces that will that will be kind of like a tribute to the Fallahi women that I have so much respect for. They're very my father's side of the family are Fallahi, like I said, and I love their determination, their hard work. They're very loving, very simple women. Just women like my grandmother that I miss so much, that had so much character to them, but at the same time, like someone like my grandma was so she was so eloquent and hardworking, and didn't have a bad thing to say about anyone, and just these women that inspired me so much. I want to pay tribute to them, and I'm sure everyone can relate when they think about their Palestinian family as well.
Definitely.
100%, yeah.
Can I ask too, you're talking about like the fact that you really dove into the history here with both of these collections. Where are you diving into the history? Where are you finding your resources, and how are you learning about this history?
So I think now we're kind of starting to document a little bit more. I think in the past people would find it obviously very hard to find proper documentation to the history of Palestinian textiles and embroidery. I'm so happy that now we have, I don't think it's enough, but we have a few resources like books that I can probably send to you. Maybe you can link them. I'm sure Lena like has a full list. I actually maybe probably took some of the books from Lena's list, and but for me,
we'll share resources.
yeah, share resources. And then for me, I think number one would be Without Karbad and her Deerah Center. I learned so
Yes.
much over there, and looking at the beautiful historical thobes, as well as I'm sure you guys know from Tatreez and Tea from a Fallahi name. There are other obviously very large books that I still haven't finished, but my absolute favorite is Threads of Identity. I absolutely love
Same.
that book. It's so
I love that
beautiful.
book.
I think the aspect of having the women that actually made the thobes speak on their stories and their lives is the best way to learn about Tatreez. And so yeah, so those are those books are the places that I have most of my information from. I wish there was more. I really wish there was more. Honestly, let's do a Tatreez University.
Working on it, girl. Working on it.
Let's do it.
And then one more question actually on this topic. Do you involve the refugee women that you work with as well in these designs, or are these mostly like a Sara vision that you put into life?
So most of the time, if it's a complex design, for example, like if it's a wedding dress, or if it's something that has a lot of embroidery that are in places that I'm not 100% sure if it's going to work out, since I'm not the one actually creating them myself, I usually go back and send them like a picture, like the reference picture that my customer would send me, and I'd be like, is this doable? Like I want to design this for her. Can we do it?
Yeah.
And she'd be like, no, we can't do that. Are you crazy? Or sometimes she'd be like, nah, let's change the fabric. So sometimes, like recently, I had a design that was a bit elaborate. Like my customer actually wanted to create something that was so, it was kind of like Met Gala-ish. And so
I love that.
I loved it. I was so excited. Like from a designer's standpoint, I was like, yes, let's do this, let's do that. And then I was like, but wait, I learned my lesson. Let me talk to the embroiderers. So I talked to them. And they're like, what? No.
I
know. Like, what are you guys doing? No. So it just depends. So we try to find ways around it. Try to find ways. But and even like obviously for fabrics, it has to go through them first. So I have to send them a sample, and they have to be able to be like, okay, I embroidered it. We're good. Because I'm sure Lena and everyone that does embroidery in Amani, that some fabrics are either like silks, for example, or hishid, or it's gonna wrinkle at the embroidery, or it's too thick, or this has too much embroidery on this fabric, we're gonna have to change it. So I have to have the fabric run by them first, and then I sample for my customer. So yeah, definitely they're obviously in the midst of everything.
I mean, you convinced me. Lena knows this. I've been dragging my feet on my thobe because I am looking for the perfect fabric that I have envisioned in my head.
Okay.
And I feel like I'm never gonna do it if I keep waiting. So I might need to, Sada, we might need to talk offline and find your most ambitious embroiderer to do my thobe.
No, that's not the takeaway here, Amani.
Oh, sorry,
no,
just kidding.
No. The
Look
takeaway.
at me being lazy.
Unbelievable.
I love convenience. You know this about me.
No, Sara, here's the problem. I think I also scared her because I didn't have that much knowledge about fabrics as well. And so I picked such a thick fabric. I don't know if we talked about this, but I think it was a painful couple of years.
Yeah.
Beautiful, but really painful to stitch and also really heavy. So it is my winter thobe officially. It's not any other time of the year. But Amani's other problem is, I believe, Amani, correct me if I'm wrong, but you want like a hot pink fabric. Right?
Yeah. It doesn't need to be hot pink, but I want like a pink. I want a magenta pink. Sada, I love a monochromatic moment. I need like a magenta pink fabric. Even I would be down with a baby pink fabric. And like just
they're linens. Pink. Linens the
best.
best.
I know. Yeah, okay, we'll talk.
Okay. Just get a pink linen. Linen's the best. Lena, have you embroidered linen?
I just started one piece actually on linen. It's a lot. It's so much easier than whatever I did. Yeah.
Are you using
absolutely.
waist canvas on your linen, or are you stitching directly?
No,
on
no.
the linen?
Okay. I'm using the waist canvas. I haven't found
Okay.
linen that's like that easy on my eyes. I can't do that.
Not thobe fabric.
Yeah.
There are some weavers actually out of Egypt that those that weave the actual old,
Yeah.
traditional linens that you can see the pores through very easily. But
Oh.
I need
again, like
that.
and then again, I ran this by my embroiderers. I'm like, I'm gonna source a linen out of Egypt
Yeah.
to embroider on directly, and they're like, Dictor Amina, you wanna you wanna our eyesight?
Exactly.
You got to get them the magnetic glasses that we use.
These poor women. Oh my
I
goodness. I feel
know.
for
No,
them.
sorry.
Yeah, they would probably hate me with my requirements. Oh man, this has been so much fun. Sada, is there, anything else that you want to share with the listeners about Tatreez, about Deerah, about your journey? We've just been having so much fun chatting with you.
And tell everyone also where they can find you, all of
Oh,
the different
100%.
links.
Oh, okay. So they can find me on Instagram at deerah.co, and they can find us as well on our website, which is also deerah.co. And yeah, we have all our contacts and everything. We're super small. Like if anyone just wants to contact me, I'm behind all of it. Like sometimes people this is funny. Sometimes people would like DM Instagram and they'd be like, "Can you connect us to your founder?" I'm like, "Okay, we're not. It's not
Please
that
hold.
serious.
Please hold.
It's not that serious." Well, so you guys can, yeah. So for me, I think the number one is that I love chatting with you guys. I absolutely love this part of like the Tatreez community. For me, this has been such a joy to be able to connect with people like you, to learn so much from you guys, and to really be able to just together as a movement bring more and shed more light on Tatreez and the people behind it and the history. I think that's extremely important. I think with everything right now going on, I just want to take a moment and say that the reason why we are even doing these talks, I think, and like having these conversations and shedding light on parts of our culture is because there's so much aggression against Palestinians from Israel and from colonization. And I think the number one thing that people need to understand is that there are obviously tiers of aggression. Number one and the most relevant and what deserves most of our attention is the violence, and especially the direct violence that is in like regions in Gaza. And then there's also different other levels of violence and different levels of aggression and different levels of erasure. And one level of that is the erasure of our culture. And one aspect of our culture is Tatreez. Because Tatreez, like a lot of us know, is not just motifs, it's not just for the embellishment. It tells our story. It proves that we were on this land. It proves that we were there on that specific land. It tells a story of all of our ancestors. It tells a story of Palestine, the areas, the mudun, the different aspects of our culture. So when you see a thobe that is from different regions, like a thobe from my dad's side of the family, for example, from Tulkarem, and then you see it tied to the specific agriculture that is from that region, and then you see another thobe that was from areas like Yafa, and you see it tied to the specific like region over there, from regardless if it was the fruit or the sea or the city or the architecture, and you could tell from the motifs that she was from Yafa or she was from Tulkarem or she was from El-Quds. So they are tied to the land through the embroidery. And so if we tell their stories, I think it's so important, especially now, because we see how hard they're trying to erase us and how hard they are trying with violence and culturally. So I think the work that we're all doing in the Tatreez community might seem, and sometimes I feel this personally, like I feel like it's not important or not as important as, as other aspects that of resistance, but it is a part of resistance. All of us are doing our part in small parts and larger parts, and all of us as Palestinians, as a movement, we're all moving in the face of a very, very powerful erasure of our culture and of our people. And I think it's extremely important for all of us to kind of pay tribute and pay acknowledgement, and just to say Allah yarham shuhada'na. And I hope that that all of us together, we can kind of just shed light and to do whatever we can to raise awareness about all aspects of our culture and our people.
Definitely. And I will say, I always say this, and I'll say it till I'm blue in the face. Tatreez is resistance. Tatreez is political, and it's so important to remember that and to say that and to name it, because I strongly believe that everyone has their lane in the movement for Palestinian liberation and in the resistance. And you said this earlier, Sada, but you know, preserving this art is about preserving our stories, our ancestors' stories, is preserving the connection to the land. So, yeah, I just really appreciate that and just want to definitely echo, like, and just say that, like, Tatriz is, it is resistance. And, you know, I know that sometimes for people, because I can relate to it, Sada, like, you know, sometimes it feels frivolous, I guess, you know,
Yeah.
compared to what's going on at home and what our friends and families back home are dealing with. But it is powerful. Like I know, Lena, I know you guys have had some Tathri circles since all of this started. We have here
Yeah.
in the Bay Area, and we've had people come out who are not Palestinian and who are just like, I just want to show up and, you know, show some solidarity. Like, I'm not somebody who can do protests, but like I can do this, and I want to learn about your art. So now I'm just rambling, but I just feel very strongly about the threes being a big part of Palestinian resistance. And so I personally thank you for the work that you guys do at Deerah, and especially the work to uplift the women who are stitching all the designs.
I actually just wanted to add one thing. I think
Akid.
it's so important. I know we brought up the women in the camps and them being refugees. I think it's super important to also remember why they're refugees.
Yes.
And they are refugees because they were forcibly removed from their homes in Palestine. So if you sit with the women in the camps, all of them will say, أنا من الخليل, or أنا من wherever, or أنا من كنت من يافا اللي هي هلا مسمية تل أبيب, or أنا من wherever. And so it's really important to see how connected they still are with their homes and how this has become a healing process for them. And to also, I also want to say one last thing as well, that it's such a fine line and it's so important for us as businesses as well, like all of us are like in the Tatreez kind of world,
Yeah.
to really be careful about how much we want to shed light on the embroiderers, and we want to shed light on them being refugees and try to help as much as we can, but also be sensitive to them as well and not try to overmarket the fact that,
Yeah.
you know, to use it as a
Yeah.
marketing technique. So I think there's so much sensitivity when it comes, and like politicizing that comes in all of this. I did not mention that before, but I actually wanted to, that sometimes a lot of businesses will overmarket the fact that they work with like 200 refugees or whatever. It's like, but if, you know what, that's not okay, because if that was the case, like if they, as they market on their websites, the whole demographic of the camp would be changed. You know, everyone would be doing well. The camp would probably not
Yeah.
exist anymore because everyone was just, you know, sky high with all this income. But it's important to, you know, be aware of that as a community when someone
Yeah.
overmarkets the fact that they work with a lot of refugees, or overmarket the fact, you know, put too much emphasis on the point to just, I'm not saying not to trust everyone, but it's a very sensitive subject. They're also very private people. And there's always that where you want to shed light on them and their circumstances, but also want to respect the fact that they don't want to be refugees. They don't want to,
Yeah.
they were forced into the situation. And it could have been easily me or anyone else. It's
Yes.
just
Yeah.
pure luck. That
100%. And
Yeah.
I will say this as a marketing person, like, don't, like, I think what you're trying to say too is like, they should not be a marketing strategy.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Like, it's not a marketing tactic, like, at all. So I definitely hear that and respect that.
Yeah.
Yeah, Sara, thank you so much for joining us. We are so blessed to have you. And for anyone who didn't catch it, it's at deerah.co, deerah.co, on Instagram, and their website is the same link. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sada. right. Well, big thank you to Sara from Deerah again for joining us. That was our first interview.
Officially.
Yeah, official first interview. How do you think it went, Lena?
Well, I love Sara. She is a dear friend of mine, so I knew that she would deliver, and we really delved into so many, actually more topics than I expected.
Yeah.
And I think one of my favorite parts was nobody knows this, but after the recording finished, we had a little visitor come into the room, and he was such a cutie. But yeah, no, really incredible, just conversation overall. I don't know, what was your favorite part, favorite topic?
Honestly, like, I really love the fact that Deerah is really dedicated to ensuring that their embroiderers are compensated fairly, because I think it feels like one piece, but it's like one very important piece to a bigger puzzle. You know, like we've talked a lot about the fact that like Tatreez gets devalued, which is a conversation we had with Sara, you know, where people don't really understand how much work it takes unless you actually Tatreez yourself. And I think that the devaluation of Tatreez, the fact that these women have not been properly compensated and have gotten taken advantage of for so many years, like I think that all contributes to the loss of Tatreez, which also is something that Sara touched on.
Yeah.
So yeah, I really love that. And honestly, I gotta hit up Sada because I actually really want to go to one of the camps and like learn from these women, you know, and just kind of learn from their skill and experience. And like she was talking about how quickly they can troubleshoot things, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I wanna understand.
I want those tricks. Yeah, exactly. No, I
What about
definitely,
you?
I mean, I definitely think there's a collaboration that's making my brain move because it's so true. Like you really don't know how much energy and time and like passion has to go into one of these pieces. And you only know when you do it yourself. I think if we can help solve that at a scale, you know, that would be huge because that would just change the entire industry completely. And you know, maybe actually take out some of these women from being in that refugee status. I mean, it's not only, you know, like income wise, but that can be the piece that we can support, you know, more directly, given that we practice ourselves.
Definitely. And I mean, that's the thing. There are designers, especially particularly in the fashion world, but like there are these designers in that world who, I mean, their pieces go for a few $1,000s.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, I would have probably thought that was crazy before I started stitching. But now I'm like, I get it. Like, I completely get it. I also completely understand that not everyone can afford that.
She spoke about it so eloquently, like this very fine balance between the accessibility and then the actual understanding and what is the word? Appreciation, I guess,
Yes.
for that work. Yeah. No, just really fantastic. We'll have to bring her on again because we can talk to her for hours.
Seriously, I mean, I personally love Tatreez in fashion and particularly love the, I guess, quote unquote, modernization of it. But yeah, I definitely am gonna probably spend some money on Deerah after this.
I have a thought from them too. I highly recommend. Highly recommend.
Yeah, I actually love the thobe I just got from them, and we'll be doing a full-on photo shoot when I come back from my trip.
Cannot wait. Cannot wait.
Well, this has been amazing, and thank you all so much for listening to Tatreez Talk. We actually want to hear from you about your Tatreez journeys, so send us an email, send us your stories. Our email is tatreeztalk@gmail.com, and we might have you on an upcoming episode. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast on your favorite listening platforms, and be sure to leave a 5-star review. You can follow me at Min Amani and Lena at Lena's Tob, and you can follow the pod at Tatreez Talk. Thank you guys so much for being here. We'll talk to you next time.